Okay, well, I'm going to report on Q today for the first time in weeks. And there are a combination of reasons for it. I think we kind of went into the weeds a few weeks ago. Obviously, some of the reports, including an Anon's postings and comments on 8chan to the effect that it was just all a LARP, set a lot of us back. But even before that, as many of you may have noticed, I was both selective and reluctant at times to talk about what was being reported by Q. And the reason for it is that we often ended up talking about two Hollywood personalities and a sports star, and as far as I'm concerned, that's as far into the weeds as you can go. And does it link to the whole satanic thing, the pedophilic thing? Yet, perhaps. But what Kanye West has to do about our national betterment, I have no idea, and that relates to dozens of other people as well. So I deferred from reporting on any of those things. I don't want to be that far in the weeds, and you're going to hear today at least two accounts that I think fit into that same principle, and I'm not going to report on them. I'll make mention of what they are, but frankly, I don't think they're important. I looked at them. I don't think they're any more important than anything else. Even assuming the best world, that there are 30,000 indictments, that Huber has filed indictments, that everybody that's the big names, they're all going to be included, and that this whole process has gone as planned and has taken the months and months and months to put it together that we have been told it was going to take. Even if all of that's true, and even if these people that are mentioned happen to be swept up into it, they're bit players, and they either may end up being witnesses that are given immunity or people who are given minor sentences. And there'll probably be 1,000 names or more that none of us have ever heard of. And so why does it make a difference? Sometimes perhaps it does, but frankly, I think some of these things are exercises in keeping everybody busy, keeping their hands idle. Idle hands are the devil's work, and in this case, not having anybody look for stuff is the devil's work. And basically that's what happened in the 3 or 4 weeks that Q went quiet. There was one posting in the middle, I think 11 or 12 days before, and another 10 or 12 days after. It all happened at about the same time that all the rest of this was shelling out, and people were screaming on both sides. And my personal commitment to myself was I'm not going to report on this until there is a return. That is, if Q doesn't return, then I knew it was a LARP. It's 100% sure. If Q returns and there is substance to it, I'm going to look at it the same way I did before. So that's the preface. I've wasted 3 minutes of your time telling you why it's taken me so long to get to it. But anyway, so there were postings clear back on the 17th of June. Let me see. I'm trying to think if there was stuff on earlier. There were a whole bunch of postings then. Frankly, most of them I did not think were particularly of consequence. There is repetitive stuff and lots of it. There is a comment here about morning sun brings heat, full moon coming, undiscovered stars learned, mission forward. Excuse me. The full moon is coming on June 27th, and I'm sure some will say, well, all right, the full moon's coming, so we should be watching for it. This also, the stars may include people who are in fact, considered to be stars, that is Hollywood big names, but it may also be political notoriety, people of political notoriety, and so we can go from there. There are lots of comments in here about Tehran and the disturbance, the uprising, the movement in Tehran, in Iran, and how that is expanding. And it is not simply the working class and or the unemployed, but that it is moving into the middle class and above, and is moving into the demonstration zones are also expanding. And of course there are people like Giuliani, for whom I have very little respect, who are saying, you know, we have to topple this regime. On the plus side of it, one can say, well, if we topple the regime and it is a CIA operative dark state bunch, then obviously we have gained. If in fact this is another Shah of Iran 1956 flip, and the CIA or NSA or the rest of them are in the middle of it, it's not necessarily a positive move. It is our dark side taking over for another dark side, whatever, whether it's internal or external. There is also the problem with the pattern of we got to get rid of Saddam Hussein, then we've got to get rid of Gaddafi, then we've got to get rid of Assad, and now we've got to get rid of the mullahs. And if that in fact is the same kind of process that we've used 3 or 4 times before, then I would say it's way worse than nothing. It's way worse than leaving it alone. Having them have nukes is better than having the total destruction. Maybe this is hyperbole. Having them have nukes is better than the total destruction of that part of the country, of the world, and just having another destabilized, polarized, militant Islamic state that creates havoc, and millions of people are both left homeless and die. How does that work for us? Well, I don't think it works very well, and I think we have about 17 years to prove that, thanks to George W. and Obama, and if Trump doesn't straighten it around soon, we can add him to the list. So we've got this, one of the comments has to do with Mueller, I guess we call him Mueller mostly, and pain, and Google access kills, and Eric Schmidt, and going to North Korea, and why was he there, and there may have been 2 reasons why he was there. We also get the J space C in a kill box, which generally meant that somebody was going to be brought before the target, basically brought into target, not necessarily died. Sometimes it's a 187, which is death, and sometimes it is just bringing them into the light. And the J space C, people have figured out, it took a couple of days, is a guy named John P. Carlin. So it's not James Comey or the other JCs that we've looked at. And this guy is allegedly a high-tech guy that was in with Mueller and in with the Assistant Attorney General for National Security, and that he did a whole bunch of things having to do with espionage and digital terrorism, and on the advisory council, and outreach into private corporations to avoid national security, cyber crimes, and espionage threats as well, both in the private sector and the public sector. And there are links in here that say that he was part of the Russia probe deal. We have known from the outset with that Russia probe thing, you know, we had 16 of 17 agencies come in with Brennan claiming that this was in fact a Russia probe, and they had fingerprints on it, when we knew, anybody that knew anything about the digital world knew that you could plant those fingerprints, fake them onto it, make it look like it came from a source, and that's the easiest thing to do. So, excuse me. So then we had to go into this whole Devin Nunes thing, the Schiff stuff, FBI information, and the shakedown that we've had since the IG report. Some of you pointed out to me, and you're absolutely right, Q has indicated that there were multiple IG reports, that there were 3, that there was a real one, there was an IG redacted one, and there was a Rosenstein modified, played, heavily redacted one, which is the one that supposedly came out, and that the one that came out was so milquetoast because of it, but there are still things to nibble at there, including Wiener's emails and other stuff that was not really substantive, that were not substantively mentioned in that report. There's also the comment that Obama attempted to get a hold of Kim Kim Jong-un prior to Trump's meeting with him, and that failed because the North Korea generals had either been released, that is, released from the center of duty, released from the obligation to the CIA. It could be any one of several areas that are possible. The next thing, and this is an in the weeds, this is what I consider to be in the weeds kind of thing. There's this Amanda Renteria, and Amanda Renteria is someone an anon brought up, and then Q responds and say this is somebody between Loretta Lynch and Hillary Clinton. And you know, I looked at all of her stuff. She was on staff with Dianne Feinstein, and then she was with Debbie Stabenow. At least Feinstein has a brain, kind of, sort of. Stabenow, I don't know where her brain went, but it disappeared a long time ago. She became chief of staff for her, and then ran in 2014 against the Republican and lost. Was on the staff of Hillary Clinton for her campaign in 2016, and recently ran in the primary for governor and ended up 7th behind, with a couple percent behind a bunch of other people, including a couple Republicans and I think 3 or 4 Democrats. So the next comment by the Anons had to do with why haven't we done stuff with Obama and HRC and the rest of them, and why could they not make a big deal out of Hillary's emails. And part of this was a disclosure, which most of us have known all along, that a major number of the people in the administration, including Obama and others at the very top, had private emails, and they were exchanging private emails. And so it wasn't just Strzok and Page, but also Comey and others. So had they prosecuted Hillary for doing 2 things: one, having classified in her private stuff, which of course I think is clearly an intentional violation of the law, and secondly, having private emails that evade the whole disclosure and public information and the right to maintain documentation of our government as it processes. I don't know the exact quotation, but it's part of the law that these guys are supposed to maintain a record that completely reflects their involvement in the government, and to hand it over and to relinquish it to the government to be archived when they leave office. And of course, none of that was done. And what was there? Well, there's pay for play for sure. There's the uranium one. There may be links to Wiener and the whole bunch. You know, some of us that believe in possible dark information, that is all kinds of private stuff that would be reprehensible, may also have been circulated among Podesta and others. So we have the FBI protecting Hillary and refer to Huber. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here about the DOJ and Huber and how it relates to the IG, and we get back to, and I'm not going to go through this line by line, but there's a huge posting, which is number 1552, which has to do with Jonathan Turley and his assessment of how we do a special counsel for whatever might have gone on the Democrat side, the emails, the Wiener, the rest of the stuff, the uranium one, the pay for play, the trade-offs, the illegal activity, and all of that, and not just Strzok and Page, the goofy stuff and the insubordination of Comey, but much deeper stuff. And Turley points out that putting Huber in behind the IG and behind Horowitz gives him a 5-month jump start, gives him 497 people working on the various aspects of it, and gives him the right to fully prosecute it, which has been sustained by Sessions. And basically Sessions says Huber has the authority to prosecute anything the IG finds, which is of a criminal nature. Now that goes to a couple of things. First of all, it goes to things that which were ongoing during the administration, and this runs the full length of the Obama administration. It covers the entire, from 2009 to 2017, but it also covers periods after these people left. So even after Hillary left office, the IG has the authority to report on it, especially as it relates to official business or pieces of official business or pieces of pay for play that came out from, that were outpourings from the direct investigation itself, and that Huber has the right to follow these and pursue them out beyond the term of that person's office. So for Lynch and Hillary Clinton and for lots of others, the Defense Department guys, the IG, not the IG, but the FBI, the DOJ, and the rest of them. We have multiple secretaries in a number of departments, and that's pointed out in one of the recent Q postings that all these guys are in on it, that they are all subject to being investigated. So Q also points out that there are examples of altered IG report and the rest of that, and that which is the real one, that there will be the real one coming. There is a comment here which is always of interest to me, since some of you may know I'm in Arizona. I used to think a lot of this guy, but I don't think anything of him anymore, and it's way worse than that, and that is Jockstrap McStain, who happens to be the senior senator of Arizona. And there's a comment in here by Q that his name is absent and that his end might be near. I, in fact, checked on it, and on Sunday, his daughter posted a Father's Day report, basically, on him. There was a picture of him, and I, for all the fact that I want him to resign, and I would like to see one more senator that actually comes to the party as opposed to No Name, who has certainly turned dark over the last 8 or 10 years, and God knows how long he was before then. So, all right, so now we have Q goes back to Amanda Renteria again. I'm not going to give any more to it. Also points out the tarmac thing, and that basically links Renteria with the possible tarmac thing. Talks about who's funding her campaign, and I don't have any information on that. But there are also reports that Bill Clinton was the provocateur in the Loretta Lynch meeting, and that she did not know he was coming. Now, frankly, I find that hard to believe, but that's the story. So once again, Bill Clinton is off the rails and went over, phoned in, apparently. She gave the okay, and he was literally standing outside of her plane door. And instead of just saying, "Hi, I see that your plane is here," he sat down for a half hour and made her nervous. Now, that's his story. It's not true, of course. There was more discussed than that. So Nunes is back into this thing, and there is this conversation about who speaks French and what it has to do, and with the misuse of "Vive la différence" and how to spell it, whether it's a Spanish spelling or a French spelling, and who might be the person that translated. In the middle of this is this John P. Carlin, who is the attorney, the Assistant Attorney General, and whether or not he is the alleged French speaker or whether it's James Comey, I don't know. I didn't find any loose links to that. There are comments. There's a comment Q made, a stack of deals that are being made about the Q thing, the conspiracy theories, the crazy, the alt-right, and the rest of that, and linking some attention to it both on the Daily Beast and U.S. article, and also I think there's a Times article and some others, and we've followed this for months, where they're saying, there are a few crazy people out in the weeds that are doing these absolutely silly stuff, and then relating a bunch of truly crazy stuff along with the conspiracies that some of us believe have some relevance. So There is a comment here about a congresswoman and her belief that Mueller is going to be released on Friday, and what did he know about that? And there is the last couple of comments that are in here today, which just dropped in the last hour or so. This is midday on the 19th, having to do with text A, text B, text C, and I take this to be texting and texts that are passed, and the fact that they were hidden from the IG, had to be sourced outside of the normal circulation, recovered only after classified intel methods were applied, and then reported, and that they are referenced in the IG report, at least in one copy of them. And the last one is a picture which I am going to take, is Horowitz, taken from up close with a cell phone, and it looks like his left eye, his left ear, and his temple, about half of his face sucked into the middle of this. And Horowitz has been in the last few days before Congress and has been reporting to various committees. I don't know that he is today, but this is obviously somebody that has a close-up of him, which I think Q means to say, look how close we are to the source of this process. So how much do I give this credit to? You know, I give some credit to it, and I go back to the stuff that had credence before. I go back to the links, the tweets, the rest of this. Some of this was, honestly faltered, because there was alleged to be a 15-minute space between some tweet postings and before they're made public, which would have given somebody in the weeds time to make sense of it. But there's much, much more, obviously. And so, am I on the train? Well, yeah, all right, I'm riding on the train, and I do give some credence to it. I still am looking for substance. I'm looking for a shoe to drop that is more than surreptitiously informational. And do I see things, evidence of it? Yes. But is it obvious and evident and irrefutable? Maybe not. I don't know. But as I say, I give credence to it, and I think it's something that we can share. I certainly get hope from it. I get encouragement from it. If there is going to be, and I'll put this in light of my own petition, if there is going to be a revolution in this country, and there are not going to be millions of people in the street in bloodshed, it has to come from this president, and it has to come now, and it has to come before the general election. I would have liked it to happen by now, because the primaries would have reversed. But either the internal logistics of it or the timing as seen to happen for the general election appear to be the imperatives. And I give some credence to that unfolding of the process, because as some of you wise ones have pointed out, oftentimes in comments to my postings, this has been in the making for 100 years or more, and you can go back right to our formation to the 1700s. It's been here for at least that long, and certainly for the last 100 years. And as I thought about it the other night, lying in bed thinking about how this is unfolded, I watched, and I think I'm going to add to the back of this the 19-second comment that was surreptitiously gained from a Bilderberg comment that Obama made, which I consider to be the most treasonous comment by a president ever. And basically in it he says, the people are not smart enough to rule themselves. We must rule for them. The New World Order is coming, and we're going to close in on it. And I will attempt to attach a copy of it to the back of this. If you have not already seen it, it is mind-boggling. Now, it's not mind-boggling that he is of that ilk. It's not mind-boggling that someone would say that to the Bilderbergs. When one puts it together, that it is a sitting president saying it to the Bilderberg group, he's basically reporting back to his masters. And that is where we must part ways. And while it itself is not a hangable treasonous offense, what he did as president in furtherance of his comment is his intentionality as it relates to many of the things he did, the Iran settlement, the invasion of Libya, the billions of dollars to the Iranians, the covert operations with the Muslim Brotherhood, with the ISIS group, etc., etc. All of those things, his tilting of the hand to Hillary, his collusion in on Uranium One, and 100 other things are evidence of what he truly believes, and it is as dark as it could possibly get. And if you can watch those 19 seconds by Obama and not come away with a conspiratorial conclusion about what the Bilderbergers have been doing for generations, you are deeper into sheepdom than you can possibly be recovered from, than from which you can properly be recovered, to say it properly. All right. So thank you so much for watching. I am really heartened to be back into the process of reporting it. I have waited most of this month or so because I needed substance to come back. I needed to see substance to come back, and I think there is certainly substance here. And I'll tell you, an entire report can be made of that 19 seconds. It is absolutely transformative. If you were not transformed before, you should be now. So thank you so much for watching. I got an okay today for some of my personal matters, and I am still piecing together exactly how I'm going to unfold this, but it will happen perhaps this week. And, you know, thank you for being patient with me, really, truly. Thank you for staying here. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for all your encouragement. Thank you for the wonderful comments that you have made, for your diligence and persistence in this entire process, because together, as we learn from the Q thing, together we go together. You know, as we go one, we go all. And so let us do that. Thanks.